Everybody, good afternoon, happy Friday. This is Peter McLaughlin, Blue Sky Hypnosis, and this is Friday Live at 5. I'm so glad that you're joining. Hopefully more people will be joining as people normally do along the way. Today we're going to be talking about, it's actually kind of finishing up a little mini series that I've been doing on past life regression. And this is leading up to a past life regression class that I'm doing a week from tomorrow on Saturday, February 4th. Today, the past life regression topic is going to be focusing on case studies. So I've been doing this work for the past 16 years, and I've worked with, thousands of people, and I'm going to be kind of culling just a few case stories to talk about kind of what happens in these journeys that people take, and perhaps a little bit about, at least in the case of the people that I'm talking about, the results or what happened as an outgrowth of doing this kind of regression. And it's not just doing the regression, it's actually, in my opinion, it's healing the past life, right? It's healing it emotionally. So when somebody suffers a trauma, just say in the present lifetime, let's call it PTSD, that PTSD, that earlier trauma, can affect that person energetically, physically, emotionally, psychically. It can affect their relationships, it can affect their finances, it can affect their physical health even for the rest of their lifetime. And it's like there's this energetic signature or imprint somewhere in the mind. Many people think it's in the body that continues to exert its influence over that person's lifetime. So this is what we're going to be getting into today. And before we do, standard disclaimer, I'm not a doctor, I'm not a licensed psychotherapist. If you have important issues you need to deal with physically or emotionally or psychologically, go consult your licensed professional. There, I got that out of the way. Make sure that if you have questions, comments, that you put them in the chat bar. I go through for people who are new on those comments, and I'm not even really reading the whole thing. I don't really have time to do that without boring people to tears. So I'm just kind of scanning them and then grabbing some and reading it, and then answering that question as best I can, or if it's a comment, maybe that spurs further discussion. It's certainly what makes the broadcast way more interesting. And if you have ideas about future Live at Fives, please consider popping me a note either in my email, peter@blueskyhypnosis.com, or right here in the chat bar. You can do that as well. So without further ado, let's get into it. I see people are tuning in, which is awesome. And I'm just noticing that Mama's Healthy Adventures is saying, happy Friday, Peter. All my past live sessions with you have been so helpful. That is awesome. Thank you so much. And this is new branding. This is English Rose, who has branded herself as Mama's Healthy Adventures. She's an awesome mother, and she has a lot of experience. She used to be a model, and she has a lot of experience with fashion and design, and of course with mothering, which is, in my opinion, the most important job in the world. Okay, so the first thing I think I wanted to talk about was a couple of the bullet points that I put out in my email. These are questions that people will ask all the time about past life regression. We'll move from those into the actual case studies. So the first one is, people will ask, is past life regression safe? My standard answer to that one is always to figure out, well, what do you mean by that? What is it you're worried about? So sometimes people will worry that they won't come out of the regression. Or it's a similar concern that people sometimes have about hypnosis, that if they're hypnotized, they won't emerge from hypnosis. And that simply is not the case. That you will always emerge from this. In fact, you never lose your consciousness about what is happening. You always know who you are in this lifetime, but you're now starting to have this second experience. I call it kind of like having two TV screens in front of you. And when you start the regression, your present life is front and center. And then as you go through the regression, the second screen with your past life on it starts to come forward, and your present life starts to retreat. But this one never actually goes away. The other things, I guess, in terms of safety would be, is it gonna mean someone is now scarred for the rest of their present life because of something that happened in the past life? I have never seen any evidence of that being the case. Far from it. One of the ways that I look at this is that, let's say you have some kind of a poison in your body, a toxin, and that toxin is, it's sequestered in your blood marrow, or your bone marrow, or it's sequestered in your fat cells or something like that. Over time, this toxin could actually affect you in a negative way. Now, would you want to release it all at once? No, probably not. but getting it out of your body is a really good idea. And what I have learned is that old emotional trauma affects your life in the ways that I talked about before. Some people have serious anger problems. Well, that always is going to go back to some earlier trauma. Now, keeping that earlier trauma repressed means that that person will probably never actually heal their anger problems, because the coding, if you will, is always going to remain intact until and unless a person unearths that old trauma, that old coding, and they're able to resolve it, not in their conscious mind, but in their subconscious mind. That has the net effect, in my opinion, of rewriting the software programming that is governing your life. All right, let me see if there are any questions. It doesn't look like, I'm just seeing real short things, but let me see if we've got something here. So Leah McLeod says PTSD or DID. So I don't know what DID is. Maybe you could let me know what that is. It sounds like another acronym that describes some kind of a trauma thing. If you could let me know, I'd appreciate that. Here is Sarah W. So Sarah W. asked an awesome question, which is, how do you choose which past life to visit? Great question. If you don't give any instructions to the subconscious mind will take you to a past life. Now, that past life generally is something, and this is my experience with this, right? So I'm not saying that this answer is engraved in stone. This is my experience. This is my belief about why this is happening. So it's almost as if a door that has been closed for a long time opens, and part of the subconscious mind says, hey, this is our chance to get rid of all the crap that's on the third shelf in that storage pantry. So it will take you to a past life that it believes that you need to resolve. Again, that is my belief. That may not actually be the true answer, but that is my experience, and that is how I interpret my experiences. Now, the other piece is if you direct the subconscious mind to take you to a particular life. That's generally what I do with clients. So step one would be identifying the problem. So a client comes in, they say, here are the symptoms they have. So let's just take something that's really common these days, and that is anxiety, panic attacks. That's the symptom. That's the outer edge of this dynamic. As you trace back from that symptom, let's call it anxiety and panic attacks, we're gonna trace that thread all the way back to its root cause. Now, that root cause is either going to be something that happened earlier in your present lifetime, or it's going to be something that happened in a past lifetime. If it happened in a past lifetime, if we have determined through our initial process that your panic attacks and your anxiety was created for the first time, not reinforced later, but created for the first time in a past life, then we know to give the instructions to the subconscious mind to take you to the past lifetime where the anxiety and the panic was created. When we get there, we will find all kinds of things from that lifetime, just like we would find all sorts of things from your present life. But what we will find for sure is we will find some type of trauma that occurred that gave birth to the root problem, the root cause. The next thing that we would want to do is we would want to resolve or heal that root cause. We wouldn't just want to look at it. So when I was trained as an EMT, I was a volunteer EMT and a firefighter for a number of years. The first thing we would do would be a rapid assessment. So if you're lying, on the roadway next to a banged up car that you were in, and you've got, I don't know, maybe cuts along your neck or something, as long as that's not spurting out with blood, our job was to do a rapid assessment, meaning check your body head to toe, front and back, to make sure there's not a worse problem on your back. We could start treating something that is totally survivable, but maybe out of sight there's something that is much worse. So so that's step one. And then so step one is to do the assessment, to look for the problem. Step two is to actually do something about it. So if you just revisit a past lifetime, it can help you understand what you're dealing with, why you have this particular dynamic, why you have these panic attacks, or why you have anger and rage that you can't control, or why you're overeating excessively. But it doesn't necessarily heal it. And just like the EMT, we would want to go to step two, which is healing that trauma. Now, healing the trauma is really going to be something that that usually, not always, but usually involves other people. And that usually involves forgiveness work. It sometimes involves empowering. So if somebody was abused by someone else, we might shrink down their abuser so that the abuser isn't as intimidating, and then have the person go back through that experience, this time more empowered. But I'm going to say that usually it's some kind of forgiveness work. But really good question. Next question I put on that little bullet point thing is, how do I know my past life regression experience is real? This is where it really gets into, and this is a big piece of what I do with my clients, is helping them kind of level set, right? So in Shakespeare's Hamlet, Shakespeare has Hamlet say, that I'm paraphrasing, "I will bind myself inside a walnut shell and call myself master of all I survey." So in this vast universe, so big we can't understand it, he's talking about this person getting inside this tiny little shell and saying, oh yeah, now I understand this whole universe inside this shell. Isn't this great? And what my point is that we live in a 5-sense reality society. That's what we're taught. If you can't see it, it doesn't exist, largely speaking. If you can't smell it, taste it, touch it, feel it. We know even from science that there's a massive universe outside of our 5 puny physical senses. Just to give you a quick idea, if I were to ask you what percentage of the light spectrum is visible light, in other words, what percentage of the light spectrum can you see with your eyes? Not sure what your answer would be, but it's probably going to be way off from the real answer. The real answer is you see, I see 0.0035% of the light spectrum. My goodness, you could have a non-physical entity standing right next to you and you wouldn't know it if you were trying to detect that with your 5 physical senses. So I don't want to go too far deep into that, but it calls into question in my mind the nature of reality. Another quick example is if let's say I'm talking to you and your name is Jane and you are a musical composer, and you wake up and you have a melody in your head that the world has never heard before. Is that melody not real because you haven't written it on a physical piece of paper or you haven't physically played it on a piano? I don't think anybody would say that. I think they would say, as soon as you hear it, Jane, in your mind, in your mind's ear, if you will, it is real at that moment. So ultimately, it's up to the person having the past life regression experience to determine for themselves what it really means. My job working with a person is not to convince them that these are real, but to help them achieve whatever result they came to achieve. For an old symptom that was driving them crazy to diminish or go away. It's up to them to decide, as I said, whether they're going to classify that as real or they're going to classify that as false. All right. The next one is, how does past life regression heal lives? And I think we'll, through the question and answer part and talking about these different cases, you'll be able to see that very clearly. And if it's not clear, ask me a question. All right, let's see what else we have here. There is Tim Erickson. Glad you're here. Good to see you. Lucy Rose, evening from Wales. Wonderful that you have tuned in. Sydney Morales, shout out to you. Estelle, hello Estelle. And Kristen Hubbard, looks like she needs to do some errands, not going to be here, so we'll see you next week. That's no problem, of course. Here's Ron Harper. Ron Harper says, I have tried to regress dozens of times. So far, no success. Suggestions? Yes. First quick thing is on my YouTube channel, Blue Sky Hypnosis. If you haven't subscribed, please consider doing that. I have a whole playlist of content that is designed to help people overcome the blocks they have to regression. So the most common block is fear. And it may not even be a conscious fear that you're aware of, but it could be a subconscious fear. So the role of your subconscious mind is to protect you. And if your subconscious mind thinks that you will suffer too much of a trauma by revisiting an old trauma, it can attempt to block that and prevent you from having that experience. That is the most common reason. Now, as I've mentioned probably on every broadcast, and I'm sorry for those of you who have heard this ad nauseum, I have a video on my channel that teaches you how to use a pendulum. The pendulum gives you a yes-no answer. You can use the pendulum, yes-no answer from your subconscious mind. The pendulum can help you pinpoint exactly what's preventing you from having a past life regression experience. So I would direct you to that video on pendulums, also to the playlist, of which the pendulum video is one of them, that can help you overcome this. But keep in mind that fear is the most common reason. Another common reason could be disbelief. And what you might try doing, it sounds ludicrously simple, and it is, but it works, is before you attempt to do the regression, say inside your mind, I hereby suspend, not I eliminate or I discard, but I suspend all my fear and all my disbelief for the next 60 minutes. Say that 3 times, do the session, and see if that helps you break through. All right, let us know if you do. Let us know if that works for you. Thanks for asking. All right, here is Estelle. How do you cancel out the beliefs you've taken on, that you've taken in from a past life? Is it just by visiting it and forgiving? Excuse me. So just witnessing the past life has been known to help a person overcome some problem. I would say that's the minority of the time. Most of the time, it's that EMT 2-step process. We identify where the problem is, and then number 2, we heal it. So I'm gonna make up a hypothetical example. Let's say you've been walking around in this lifetime with all of this guilt and shame. And the guilt and shame is connected to your panic attacks and anxiety. The guilt and shame is connected to your overeating. And the guilt and shame is connected to failed relationships, right? We've got all of this stuff going on, but it's all tracing back from the symptoms back through to something that happened in a past lifetime that created guilt and shame. So let's say in a past lifetime, you were living in the Middle Ages and you had a baby out of wedlock, and the community, the church or the town fathers or whomever, shamed you publicly, and they took your baby from you and put the baby in a convent, and you never saw the baby again. Right? Would make sense. This actually just came up this week. This similar type of story just came up this week, or maybe it was last week. Well, what we would want to do once we understood that story is we would want to help your past life self, because it's almost as if she is still living energetically, right? Outside of you, like your mind has been fractured, and part of it is occupied by this past life self, and part of it is occupied by the rest of you. We want to unite these parts of your mind. So we would work with your past life self, and we would help her understand and see that situation from another perspective, right? Because you're going through this too. And let's say she was 16 when this happened. And, mores have changed in the last 500 years. And the people who harmed her back then might be willing in spirit to ask for her forgiveness for taking her child away from her. It may be that before she was born in that life, that whole incident, having a baby out of wedlock, having the baby taken from her, was actually planned on a spiritual level. If that's the case, we would want to know why that was. And that would help her heal too. All of these things would theoretically help her get in a position where she was prepared to forgive herself. If she wasn't, we would maybe ask her spirit guide, who benefits by you holding on to this guilt and shame? And I know what the answer is going to be. Sometimes I consider myself a spiritual lawyer. The answer is going to be nobody. Does anybody benefit by you forgiving yourself? Oh yeah. Well, who besides you benefits? Well, your 2 children are going to benefit, your husband's going to benefit, your mother who has the same issue is going to benefit. And then you ask the person, are you ready to let go of that guilt and shame now? We're working towards getting that past life self to release the guilt and shame. Once she does that, and she's kind of like glowing and shining, we ask her for her advice for the client for this lifetime, now that she's healed. Once that happens, we generally, but not always, integrate her with you in your present lifetime. This has the net effect of changing your belief system. What is a belief? A belief's an emotionalized idea. So we have an idea here, we got an emotion here, and we marry them. Now we have a belief. This has the net effect of changing key beliefs around that original precipitating root cause incident, which then changes your life in your present lifetime. So hopefully that made sense. Great question. Thank you for asking. All right. All right, so here is Barca Palve, how to resolve past life trauma. So hopefully that description, that my answer to Estelle's question answers that for you. If it doesn't, ask another question in here if something wasn't clear, or if we need to flesh that out a little bit more. Maybe what we'll do, excuse me, I think I'm fighting off cold. Maybe what we need to do is go into the first of the past life regression cases. And I'm going to be truncating these. I'm not going to be going through every last little detail of it. And actually, there are 2 past life regression cases on my YouTube channel that I turned into almost like dramatic stories. One is called Native Son. I'm not going to be talking about that one today. And the other one is called Trapped. So I'm going to talk about the Trapped one first. But if later you want to watch the videos on these stories, watch them. Tell me what you think about them. Because if you like them, I would consider dramatizing more of them. All right, so the first one involves a man in his 30s, married, several children, several small children, had gotten to this position in terms of anxiety and panic attacks where he could not go anywhere. Like, he was working from home. He was not able to go to restaurants. He was not able to take car trips. He was not able to go to sporting events. And he had this horrible fear about needing to go to the bathroom while he was out. That was one of the symptoms. The other symptom was just, like a racing heart, a sense of doom, and just panicking, like he's trapped in a car going underwater or something. As we delved deeper into his case, using a variety of methods, we found an incident that he had forgotten when he was very, very little, where he was at an amusement park with his family when he was very young. And a storm was coming in, and alarms and sirens and klaxons went off in this amusement park because they said a tornado's coming. And so his father grabbed him and grabbed one of his siblings and brought him to the men's room. Important connection there with this thing about going to the bathroom. And then, and I know it's not a past life, but we're getting there. And then his father said, stay here, because one of his siblings was still out in the park. And so he was kind of alone, or maybe with one of his siblings in this bathroom. Super traumatic for him, right? Okay, so we resolved that one. His symptoms, his issues got better, but they didn't get completely better. Maybe, 25% better. I'm just kind of guessing at my memory on this one. The next regression that we did, the next layer of this onion that we were peeling back, was in a past lifetime. And he found himself in a military uniform on a ship, down below decks on a ship. It seemed like World War II. And again, there was sirens, klaxons, emergency, people running everywhere. And bombs started hitting the ship that he was on. And the ship immediately began sinking. He was in his bunk, and he was staring at a black and white photograph of his wife and 2 little children as the water is rising up in this bunk, and he died. So the major pain for him was prematurely leaving his wife and his little kids. And you can see how this parallel with his present life, how it triggered the memory of the past life in terms of the klaxons and the sirens and the emergency, and this idea of being separated from the people that you love. So in terms of answering, in this case, how we healed this, we reunited him, the past life self, the guy in the Navy. We reunited him with his wife from that lifetime and his children from that lifetime. And that seemed to do it. That plus the healing that we did around the amusement park thing. So hopefully that kind of makes sense. And again, I'm kind of truncating things. These are sessions that could be lasting, 45 minutes or something as we're going through all of these details. And the emotion, generally speaking, that overcomes people is intense. So he was, heaving, his chest was heaving with these racking sobs and crying and, periods of time where he's kind of collecting himself while he's still going through the regression. There's some fear for sure as the water is rising. I mean, you can see it on his face as the water is rising up. And part of my job is to do what's necessary to diminish that fear without taking him out of the scene. If the fear becomes too intense, then it's important to remove him from the scene and look at it from above. The other thing that I think that happens in terms of healing in a case like this is that when you revisit a past lifetime, it reminds your subconscious that when you die, it's not oblivion. It's not just all darkness and nothingness. That when you die, you retain your consciousness and that you live again in another lifetime. And I think that, just that alone, also brings some of the healing. So perhaps this is part of what's happening when someone just does a past life. They don't do any healing alongside of it in particular, but they still have positive benefits from it. All right, cool. Let's see what else we have here. Here's Leah McLeod saying DID stands for Dissociate Identity Disorder caused by prolonged trauma. So I'm not really sure. So PTSD is obviously post-traumatic stress disorder. Dissociate identity disorder. I don't know enough about that to be able to speak on it comprehensively. But what I could say is that, and this is just my opinion, so take it with a grain of salt, that any problem, whether you're working on a car or you're trying to solve a problem in your house, or you're trying to find the cure for some disease, or you're trying to help somebody with a long-standing issue, in my opinion, it's just my opinion, is that problem has an origin point. It has a root cause. And that by resolving the root cause, we also automatically resolve the symptoms, because the symptoms owe their existence and their continuation to the healthy, I'm using this word in quotation marks, root system that allows it to thrive and flourish. Because without the root, the symptoms go away. Just like without the root, the plant dies. So, I don't know if that kind of disorder, DID, would be appropriate for this kind of work, because again, I don't know enough about it, but I'm very confident that it has a root cause. All right, thanks for clarifying that. Here is Sydney. Sydney, how do you? I remembered many past lifetimes as a child. Excuse me. Is there a way that I can instruct my subconscious mind to take me to a specific glimpse of a past life that I remembered previously? Theoretically, yes, there is. So you want to go to one, call it a scene. You want to go to one particular scene from a past lifetime that you saw previously as a child. Theoretically, you could do that. What I would recommend is working through a spirit guide. So on my channel, I have tracks, one in particular that is meet your spirit guide, then go to a past life. And when you meet with your spirit guide, you can say, will you allow me to go to that one scene in particular from a past lifetime that I witnessed before? Your answer is either going to be yes or no. If it's yes, you're all good. If it's no, they're probably going to take you someplace else where you really need to go. Alternatively, you could use a pendulum for yourself, and you could say, am I clear to visit that particular past lifetime in that particular scene in that particular past lifetime, and see if you have any blocks around that. And if you do have blocks, figure out what those blocks are. Maybe there's something else that you have to clear first before you can go to that past life. Thanks for asking. Here's Classic Design Boutique. Hello to you too. Neil Tomlin says, is it possible to learn of someone in your past life that is also in your current life? Yeah, absolutely. We seem to travel in packs. I always make the comparison with a repertory company of actors. So let's say you have 15, 16 actors, and in a season, they're going to do 6 plays in the summertime. And they just use the same group of actors to play all the parts in all 6 of those plays in the summer. So in one play, your role might be really big, and you're the hero. In the next play, it's a really small role, and you're kind of just supporting. In the next role, it's a bigger supporting role. In the next role, it's a big role again, but now you're the villain, and you get the idea. Well, we tend to travel in these groups, in these packs. And so one of the common questions that I ask people when they're encountering other people in a past lifetime is, do you recognize that person as anyone from your present life? Sometimes, often it's yes, but quite a few times it's no. So the answer to your question is yes. Yes, you often will run into people in a past lifetime that are in your present life. We all seem to be working together on a spiritual level to try to help each other advance. And sometimes that means that the person that you're working with might actually be an antagonist in this lifetime. Again, just like a play. Thanks for asking the question. How are we doing on time? Okay. Here is somebody from Sydney, Australia. Welcome. Welcome, Sudhir. Here's Paratrooper 73. Sarah W., your mind does not make the choice which life to visit. Your higher self does this. You will get to see where you are ready to work on. Yeah, I don't totally disagree with that one. I mean, I think there's a lot of commonality between what Paratrooper is saying. And whether you call something your higher mind or your subconscious or your super ego or maybe a spirit guide, I don't think any of us is super clear on which one of those words, maybe there's a word we're not using, is the appropriate one to use. But we kind of get the point by using those different terms, I think. That's just my opinion. All right, here is Musette. Okay, Musette, I'm going to use this as a plug for the workshop. She says, hi, Peter, looking forward to the Past Life Regression Workshop on February 5th, and that's a week from tomorrow on Saturday. And we're just going to pop that one up here. If anybody is interested in participating, this is going to be a totally interactive past life regression workshop. So it's going to be delivered via Zoom. We'll be able to see and hear each other. So when you ask a question, you're just going to ask it over Zoom and not just having to type it out. We're going to be doing, among other things, a live regression with a volunteer. And then we're going to be doing a group regression. There's going to be a ton of question and answer, kind of like a super version of one of these 1 hour Friday lives, but it's going to be of course focused on past life regression, and it's going to be 3 hours instead of 1 hour. So if you're at all interested, I encourage you to sign up. If you go to my website, blueskyhypnosis.com, there's a little box right there. You can click on it. It will take you right to the description about the past life regression workshop. If you pop in a code, and it's right here, BlueSky222, it'll give you a 22% discount on the price of the workshop. So yeah, Musette, I'm really looking forward to seeing you and working with you and everybody else who's registered for that class. All righty. Oh, cool. 30-Day Jeff, I made it. I love real stories from actual, I can't call them patients. I have to call them clients because I'm not a doctor, but yeah, I get the meaning. I get the meaning for sure. Let's use that as a segue into another story. So I had a client maybe in her early 70s, and her biggest issue, her biggest problem was that she had been shut out of the lives of her grandchildren. So she had 2 sons, maybe in their 30s, excuse me. Just dealing with a tickle in my throat. And I think, each son had a family, and I want to say that each had like maybe 2 to 3 children. So she had, say, 4 to 5 very small grandchildren, and she loves little kids and grandchildren. And she had this horrible relationship with both of her daughters-in-law. So much so that when she would come into town, now she lived, 1,000 miles away. So when she would come into town and would say, hey, when can I see my grandchildren? The answer would always be something like, well, she's here, let's say for a week. On Tuesday, you can come over from 10:30 to 11:15, or on Friday, you can come over from 3:30 to 4:30, something like that. And she's like, why am I being ostracized? Why am I estranged from these daughters-in-law? I don't know them from a hole in the wall. And they're obviously saying to their husbands, her sons, that they don't want to see her. And she's like, I never did anything to them. She was really angry about it, which, I guess you can understand. Well, we determine that the root cause of her relationship to both of her daughters-in-law exists in a past lifetime. That's our assessment, our EMT assessment, if you will. We go into the past lifetime, and this grandmother in her early 70s is some kind of medieval warrior, like a Viking or something. And she's going through a village with a sword in her / his hand. It's this big man wearing a helmet and everything, and going through this village. People are screaming everywhere. Things are on fire, and he's just hacking, killing people. And it's not like he's killing combatants, people who are fighting him. He's killing everybody. It's just like scorched earth. And he runs up to a family, a woman, and with little kids, and he just kills them all. And he does this to another woman and her kids, just kills them all. And it turns out, I'm sure you know where this is going, that the women in that lifetime that he killed, along with the children, are her daughters-in-law in this lifetime. Suddenly, in an instant, she understands why this is happening. And in that same instant, she goes from being pissed off that she's the victim, that she's being wronged, to, oh my God, this is karmic. That something in the daughters-in-law, the maternal instinct to protect, is telling them, don't let their kids be around this woman, their mother-in-law. And they don't know why, right? They just have this feeling. This is a bad feeling. I don't want my kids around this person. So we went through the process of having the past life warrior. I don't know if that's even the right word if you're killing women and children. We had him encounter the women he had killed and the children he had killed and beg for their forgiveness, to apologize to them for what he did. The past life victims forgave him. And we did some other things around healing those relationships. Well, she leaves, goes back home 1,000 miles away, and maybe 3 weeks later, she calls me and she says, you're never going to believe this, but independently, both of the daughters-in-law reached out to her and said, we're really sorry that when you were here the last time, we didn't get to spend very much time with you. And we really hope the next time you come, we can spend way more time, visiting with you and with the children. And she didn't tell anybody. She didn't tell her sons about this regression. She didn't tell the daughters-in-law. It just happened. And that is probably one of the most remarkable things about this work that I've witnessed over and over again, actually, in the 15, 16 years that I've been doing this work, is when there's some kind of change in a relationship that involves someone who, in their present life self, was not physically present in the work that we were doing, and the client didn't tell the other person about the work we were doing, and yet there was this dramatic shift. It seemed to just come out of nowhere. That tells me something that we're doing is creating healing that is rippling in all directions. It's not just affecting the client, it's affecting other people too, which I think is a recipe for healing our world. Pain clearly radiates in all directions. Healing radiates in all directions. So cool, let's see what else we have here. Good morning, that is so cool, from Prem. Good morning to you, Prem, from Australia. Here is classic design, excuse me. Classic Design Boutique. Is there a difference between past life regression and Akashic record reading? My name is Jeanette. Hi, Jeanette. Yes, there is. So, well, in a traditional sense, or in my understanding of it, a past life regression is something that, in general, you experience first person. Although you could experience it third person, and it could go back and forth. In general, an Akashic record reading is something that's more third person. It's more of observing what is in the Akashic record rather than participating in what happened before, right? So you could be in the body of that warrior, feeling the sword in your hand, feeling the texture of the leather somewhere, seeing what's happening. Or you could be outside of it, just watching it all happening. A past life regression offers the opportunity, and it often occurs where you're in the first person. Whereas with the Akashic record, it might be that you're looking at a page in a book. It might be that somebody is showing you a scene. Now, could you sometimes step into that scene? Yeah, you probably could. And in that sense, they would sort of blend together. So hopefully that makes sense. And again, this is just my take on this. This is just my experience, because I don't know that anybody has all of the answers. You know, we all have our little sliver or fragment of experience in these realms that are so vast that I think we're just scratching at the surface of trying to understand them. But thanks for asking the question. Here is Mama's Healthy Adventures. I would say one of the main ways you know the past life regression you have is real is because it makes sense in regards to the issues you are experiencing in this lifetime. Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more on that. That over and over again, over 16 years, over thousands of regressions, you know, instantly these stories come up where everything ties together perfectly. And it just defies logic that all of these people would be able to do this at the drop of a hat. And that they would quote unquote make up stories where they're the villain. Or make up stories like a blue collar working class guy would make up a story where he's a little girl, helpless and alone somewhere in a forest. I agree that this is one of the ways that it just feels so remarkable and so magical. The other way that I think, in fact, I would say for me, the most powerful way to know that it's real, in addition to what Mama's Healthy Adventure said, is emotion. When the emotion gets involved, that's super powerful. So when you are in a past life regression, for example, and let's say you see somebody standing over there, like a 20-year-old woman or a 5-year-old girl, and you burst into tears, your conscious mind is going, why am I crying? I don't know that person. But another part of you knows who that person is exactly, even before they say a word, even before the scene unfolds, just by laying eyes on them. And all of that pent-up emotion comes flooding out of you. And I don't know where that would come from unless there was a deeper recognition, a deeper memory of who that person is and why this, why you're having, something must have happened to create all of that emotion. And then when you go through the regression, you then understand why you had that powerful response. But again, to your conscious mind, it's just like, oh, it's a person. Why am I crying? Or even it's a person that's going through this horrible experience. Why would I be crying that hard? Why would it affect me that deeply? I can watch movies and sometimes weep a little bit, but the racking sobs, and it certainly doesn't happen when a character is first introduced and I have no context around them. So I would say that yes, in addition to the stories fitting together perfectly, this concept, this phenomenon of these powerful emotions washing over you is just astonishing. And I think I may have mentioned this a couple weeks ago, but another past life regression story that I have at the top of my top of mind is I was not this past summer, but the summer of 2020. I was going through some things in my life, and I used my pendulum because I had this sense something's ready to come up, something's ready to come out. it's almost like when you feel like you're going to get sick or you have to go to the bathroom. I hate to use these examples, but it's like there can be a feeling like something's gnawing at you. And sure enough, I got, there's a past life you need to deal with, and you're ready now. And I went into a past lifetime. I don't know why today I'm just talking about things that happened in medieval times, with the exception of the guy that was on the World War II ship. But I was in the middle of a medieval battle, and I could hear the sounds of the battle. I could hear people screaming. I could hear swords hitting shields. I could hear swords hitting swords. I could hear the sounds of horses and hooves. And it was hot. It was a summer. The grass was really green. And I was fighting in the middle of this battle. Excuse me. And at some point, I got a spear through my chest or something. And I fell over, and I rolled all the way down this green grass of a hill, and ended up on my back on the bottom, looking up at the sky. And this spear was coming out of my chest, and I was dying. And I had this feeling like I had failed. I hadn't done enough. And this is, again, one of these cases where the next scene was I encountered a woman, and I just knew, I didn't recognize her, but I just knew she was my wife, and like 3 or 4 kids. And I knew they were my children. But consciously, I had no idea who these people were. And as soon as they appeared, I went into these convulsing, racking sobs that must have lasted for like 3 or 4 minutes, maybe longer. And I just felt the need to apologize to them. And I just kept saying, I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I'm sorry. And they said, you don't have to be sorry. You did everything you could. And I said, I didn't do enough. And they said, you died for us. What else could you have done? And in this process, and some other work that we did, I felt this great weight lift from me. This thing that I've been carrying around for God knows how long, hundreds of years perhaps. So this thing about the emotion, and I'm sure there's people on this broadcast today, or who will watch this later, who've done past life regression, who might be able to relate to this. It's so compelling. It's so overwhelming. And it's one of the things that keeps me coming back to doing this work. All right, let's see what else we have here. Amy McFarland, good to see you. Glad you're here. Yes, I agree with you, Amy. We are spiritually connected. Forgiveness has a ripple effect from the one that is forgiving. Absolutely. And it's kind of like these scientific studies that have been done where if somebody, let's say some person opens a door for an old lady, the old lady has these feel-good hormones that are released in her body. The person who opens the door has feel-good hormones released in their body. The witness across the street that watches this has feel-good hormones released in their body. So it's in our scientific literature. It happens. It ripples in all directions. You know, we know what happens in alcoholic families, right? In the opposite direction, that pain radiates in all directions. But I think we need to keep hold of this truth that healing radiates in all directions. So if you take the time and the effort to heal your life, it's gonna affect not just you, but the people in your immediate circle, and who knows about your ancestors or about people that you've lived other lifetimes with. It will probably affect them in really positive ways too. So thank you, Amy, for bringing that to the table. Estelle, you are welcome, and thank you for being here. Let's see, Cass, here's Cass. Cass says, hello from New Jersey. That's a cool picture, Cass. If you have a session and a past life relationship comes up and you clear issues from the past life connection, does that mean you would clear issues in the relationship in this life? Possibly yes, possibly no, and possibly partially. How's that for an answer? Okay, here's what I mean about this. So if the root cause of your relationship issues is something that happened in a past lifetime, that could significantly improve what's going on in your present lifetime, in your present relationship with that person. This has definitely come up in sessions that I have done with clients, that we have cleaned up a relationship. Let's say you got a husband and wife in this lifetime and they're having problems. And we find out that in a past lifetime, they had problems. Same two people, maybe not husband and wife, but they had problems in that lifetime. And they resolve the problem in that past lifetime. And when I say they, what I mean is the client and energetically the partner. Then that can absolutely reflect in the present life relationship. Where it might not impact it so greatly is if something happened in this life that was unrelated to the past life, right? So let's say you're carrying around 100 pounds of crap. You might be able to, in the latest example I gave you, relieve yourself, the relationship, of 15, 20 pounds of that crap. Would that be enough to notice the difference? Yeah, it might be, but it might not clear up everything because you may have other things from this lifetime that need to be cleared up. But the good news is you could use present life regression to deal with that as well. And you could have, theoretically, you could have both sides of the equation, both partners doing this work. So yeah, awesome question. Thank you for asking. All right, let's see. We've got about 8 more minutes left. I'm going to take a couple more questions. And before I do that, I just want to talk about next week. So I don't know if you can hear that in the background. My dog is greedily drinking down some water. Next week, let's see. Where is it? Where did it go? Oh, it's back here. Let me get rid of this one. All right, so next week we're going to be getting off the past life regression topic because, as I said, it kind of culminates in next Saturday. We're doing the past life regression class. If you didn't hear me talking about this before, it's a live 3-hour workshop delivered via Zoom. It'll be totally interactive. We're going to actually do a live past life regression with a volunteer, and then we're also going to do a group past life regression live. We're going to have all kinds of Q&A going on because we're going to be able to see and hear each other all the time. So next Friday, we're going to be talking about reversing self-sabotage when it comes to the desire to lose weight. So a lot of people will talk about, getting on a diet. Everything's going great. They're losing weight. Everything's great. And then all of a sudden, bang, something occurs and backslide. Starts binge eating, overeating, the weight comes back on, and then the cycle repeats. So we're going to be talking about how do you reverse self-sabotage when it pertains to the desire to lose weight. All right, let's take on just 1 or 2 more questions, and let's see what's here. Here is Kitten in the Moon. I love that name. Hey, Peter, I have tried your past life regression quite a few times, but no matter how I try to focus, I fall asleep every time. Is that my subconscious butting in? It could be. What I would suggest if you're falling asleep is, and maybe you're already doing this, in which case, please forgive me for telling you what you've already tried. But if you haven't, do this at a time of day when you're more alert. So if you've been doing the past life regression, after lunch when all your food is in your stomach and your blood is leaving your head and going to your stomach, or if you're doing it at night when you're tired after a long day, try it in the morning when you're more alert. If you're doing it during the week when you're kind of hectic and busy, do it on a Saturday or Sunday when you're less hectic and less busy. If you're lying down, do it sitting up. If you're sitting in a comfortable chair, sit up in a less comfortable chair. All of these things can help you to prevent yourself from falling asleep. Because the most common reason why someone would fall asleep in this circumstance is that we have forgotten what it is to relax in modern society. And going into hypnosis brings you into a deep state of relaxation. And when you are in a deep state of relaxation, obviously it's easier to fall asleep. So give those tips a try and let us know if you're able to stay awake and have that experience. Thanks for asking. Love that name, Kitten in the Moon. 30-Day Jeff, since I know I need some fixin', can you advance to a spirit guide level so I can stay up there and not deal with this place anymore? I love that question. That's awesome. I'm afraid, how best to answer this? It's like I want to be a Navy SEAL, but I don't want to go through the training. Get my idea? That what makes a Navy SEAL is the hellacious training that they have to go through. And they know that anybody that's wearing those, forget what it is, it's a trident, I think. Anybody that's wearing this trident pin has gone through the exact same ordeal and has persevered. And I think that that's kind of what our our existence on this planet really is it's kind of like Navy SEAL training. And I feel like, and I won't go super deep into it, but I feel like right now, you and me, all of us that are on this planet right now, are going through the equivalent of the spiritual Super Bowl. We are on the field. We are the ones who are taking hits, and we're the ones who are catching passes, and we're the ones who are defending, and we're the ones who are blocking. We are on the field right now. So I don't think that you can bypass this place and achieve the kind of spiritual growth that you can achieve in a shorter period of time by going through all of the learning and all the pain and all of the understanding through contrast and the ups and the downs and all these other things. Kind of like a football game, right? Highs and lows, win, lose, injury, getting a trophy, getting booed, everything is here. I got, one of my most memorable negative comments today where somebody just went off on me in capital letters. And it's like, if I want to play in this realm, this is going to happen, just like to a football player or a baseball player or a basketball player or a performing artist. Not everybody's going to love it. And when we choose to step onto this planet, I think we're taking on the understanding that this is not going to be an easy road. But nothing worth anything comes at no price. One of the things I like to say is we don't build statues to people sitting on their couch with the remote control in their hand, right? They're always like on a horse that's rearing back up or something like that. All right, one more. Let's do one more. Thanks, 30 Day Jeff. Appreciate the question. Let me see here. Here is Jeannie Stones or Stoness. What is the oldest past life timeline that you have helped someone connect to? Great question. The oldest lifetime would be living in caves. So primitive people wearing loincloths, animal skins, and living in a cave. And it's happened a number of times for sure. And back to the whole relationship thing, there was one past life regression that I was doing where a woman was having problems with her husband in her present life. And she learned that in the past life, she stabbed him. And this was a past life in the deep past, prehistoric times. And we went through the healing that was involved. And I think it was on both sides. I don't think she just attacked him wantonly. I think he had done something and whatever, but we went through the healing, and I can't remember if I ever learned whether that affected their relationship. I want to say it did in a positive way, but it's been a long, long time ago. So I can't remember exactly, but that would be for sure an example of the oldest past lifetimes that people have revisited. Now, people have also visited lifetimes that they've lived on other planets. That's happened a few times as well. But I think I'm going to wrap it up with that one because we're at about an hour. Thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you even more for your comments and for participating. And again, if you have any interest in going deeper into this, you can either do a session with me. We do one-on-one sessions via Zoom where we can work on your issues directly. Or you could consider signing up for this class, this past life regression class we're going to be delivering via Zoom a week from tomorrow on February, I think it's the 5th, from 1 to 4 o'clock Eastern US time. If you use Blue Sky 222 and the capital B, capital S are capitalized, then you get a 22% discount on the class. And I think we're going to have an awesome time with that. So look forward to next Friday live at 5, where we're going to be talking about reversing self-sabotage as it pertains to weight loss. I hope you guys have an awesome weekend wherever you are in the world. And we'll see you next Friday live at 5.